Hello, hello. This is One Great Earth. My name is Dan. We got a lot to get into today, especially since I did not do a show on Friday. I apologize for missing a day. Trying to be consistent, but Friday was a hard day. Was not able to stream. And I am late today because I had to take a shower before stream and get ready for everyone. Missing a day. Oh. Trying to be consistent, but Friday was a hard day. Now let's see. Now we do have a lot to get into. There's famine engulfing Sudan, famine engulfing Gaza. Not enough food to go around. There's no direct path of aid. No matter how much is sent, when it's on the ground, it doesn't get to the right hands. It doesn't get to where it should be. Sudan is different. Civil war breaks out between two militaries feuding for power, with neither side seeming to care about civilian life or casualties. It is dominating the area of Sudan. This is from The Guardian, Julian Borger. Sudan on precipice of famine beyond imagination, says outgoing UN aid chief. Man-made crises in Gaza and Sudan, leaving millions of people at risk, says retiring British diplomat Martin Griffiths. Sudan is facing horror beyond imagination. The outright UN aid chief has warned, with 750,000 people under imminent threat of famine and with conditions in danger of worsening even further. The British diplomat Martin Griffiths will retire from his job as the UN's Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs at a time when famine on a historic scale is looming over Sudan and Gaza. Griffiths told The Guardian that while Gaza is the subject of intense media coverage and diplomatic effort, albeit unsuccessful so far, another potentially much larger human-made tragedy is unfolding in Sudan, largely out of the world's sight and with little sign of diplomatic progress. Statistics published on Tuesday by the Federal Food Security Phase Classification (IPC) show that 495,000 Palestinians in Gaza face catastrophic conditions defined as an extreme lack of food, starvation, and exhaustion of coping capacities over the coming 6 months. Over the same period, the panel of experts estimated that 755,262 people in Sudan face the same Phase 5 catastrophic conditions, while a further 8.5 million Sudanese face a Phase 4 emergency, defined as a state where acute malnutrition and disease levels are excessively high and the risk of hunger-related death is rapidly increasing. These are staggering numbers. It's beyond imagination. That's 8.5 million at Phase 4. There's no Stage 6. As far as I recall, Stage 6 would be, Phase 6 would be local extinction. Phase 5, catastrophic conditions facing horror of war. 8.5 million people face Phase 4. 8.5 million people can become Phase 5 catastrophic condition at any day. He agreed with estimates by top U.S. officials that without a change of course in terms of access for humanitarian relief and international donations, the outcome in Sudan could be even worse than a historic famine in Ethiopia, which killed 1 million people between 1983 and 1985, according to UN estimates. Sudan is comparable in horror and potential tragedy, if not worse, but it's not moving in the right direction and it's not getting international attention on the level it should, Griffith said. There was massive international attention on the Ethiopian famine and massive generosity, whereas Sudan, partly because journalists are giving visas to get to places, it's very difficult to get the story out. The 2024 Sudan Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan, launched at the end of last year, asked for $2.7 billion USD to address the crisis in Sudan, but as of this week, it was less than 17% funded. Griffiths said that is about the average global response rate for humanitarian appeals around the world. Tragically, it's not that unusual these days. It's partly because the needs have grown, but the funding hasn't. The two rival generals driving the civil war, Abdel Fattah el-Burhan, the head of the Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, and the country's de facto ruler, and Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, the head of the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, have shrugged off mediation efforts, and both sides are blocking access for food and other humanitarian aid. Crucially for the Darfur region in western Sudan, the center of the looming famine, the SAF is not letting aid across the Adre crossing from Chad. Griffiths said diplomatic efforts were underway to try to resolve the blockade, perhaps with an inspection regime to guarantee that arms were not entering Sudan alongside food aid, but he said that time was running out to avoid the worst-case scenarios. The worry is that we are not going to get the seeds and to do the planting seasons, and it's only going to get worse. In Gaza, Griffiths noted that the number of Palestinians facing catastrophic famine has halved since March, when those at risk numbered more than 1 million people, but we also warned the improvement could be short-lived. He said, I suspect the reason for the improvement is because we did get in some quantities of humanitarian assistance in the months of March and April. So aid works is a story here. People can be rescued from famine and starvation and disease if aid is made available, and actually can be rescued quite quickly back from the abyss. Since the limited openings of crossings into Gaza in early spring, however, Israel has launched an offensive on Rafah, the southernmost city in the coastal strip. That more than 1 million people fleeing into a no man's land in central Gaza, closed the main access road for aid, the Rafah crossing, and accelerated the spread of gang violence and insecurity, which has emerged as the biggest obstacle to distributing food. We have now gone downhill to practically nothing, Griffiths said. He added that, although criminality and mob looting had become major problems inside Gaza, it did not absolve Israel of a responsibility as the occupying power. The Israelis have an obligation under international laws to provide security for humanitarian aid. So it's not right to say they're not the problem, Griffiths said. They are part of the process that is needed to ensure the security of humanitarian deliveries. He said UN aid convoys would never ask for Israeli military escorts, but he said there are other things Israel could do. He pointed out that a de-confliction center had not been set up to bring aid organizations and the Israel military together to compare to ensure convoys are not bombed. The creation of such a center was one of the promises made by Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, to Joe Biden in a phone call in April. It never quite happened, he said, adding, "We're not asking for anything out of turn. We're asking for standard things that we ask the parties in conflict situations anywhere. It's not rocket scientist, but it needs to get done." A U.S. official confirmed that the absence of the confliction center was the biggest obstacle to distributing aid inside Gaza. The looting as well as the recent violence is a factor, but overall I think the bigger concern for us is getting those movements coordinated in a way that the UN can function more effectively, the UN said. The Israelis haven't come through on that promise yet. To improve internal security within Gaza, Griffiths also advocated talks with the leaders of the region's big clans who have become more powerful with the collapse of the Hamas-run government. It has to be part of the puzzle, he said, adding that the big families need to be consulted to make sure that we understand the dynamics of their communities and what's happening in these places. Very horrible, horrible conditions. People are suffering and millions are suffering. Why? Why are they blocking aid in Sudan? Why are they continuing to block aid in Gaza? People are dying, and like the aid gets to the last mile and that's it. It can't go any further, or it gets torn apart by a missile, gunfire, looting. Sudan on the precipice of famine. 8.5 million people. Okay, so phase 5 is the highest level it goes. The classification scale is 5 severity phases from minimal to none to catastrophic to famine. So when we say that 8.5 million people are about to enter category 5 famine, that is the highest level that it can go. There is nothing higher than phase 5 category catastrophic famine. Now for some Midwest news. Giant sinkhole swallows part of Illinois soccer field. No injuries reported after hole in City Park opens above limestone mine. A giant sinkhole has swallowed the center of a soccer complex that was built over an operating limestone mine in southern Illinois, taking down a large light pole and leaving a gaping chasm where squads of kids often play. But no injuries were reported after the sinkhole opened Wednesday morning. No one was on the field at the time and no one was hurt. And that's the most important thing. What about the people in the mines? Did this cause flooding? Did this cause catastrophic damage in the mine? Was this an abandoned part of a mine anyway? How are these mines built? How deep are they? You know what I'm saying? Not a coincidence, a heavily watered area is having soil failure, catastrophic sandstone failure. Sorry, I digress. Security video that captured the hole's sudden formation shows a soccer field light pole disappearing into the ground, along with benches and artificial turf at the city's Gordon Moore Park. The hole is estimated to be at least 30.5 meters wide and up to 15.2 meters deep, said Michael Haynes, the city's Parks and Recreation Director. It was surreal, kind of like a movie where the ground just falls out from underneath you, Haynes told Came Off TV. Look at that. Mile run is 52 meters below City Park. 52 meters? Wow, okay. 52 meters deep and it's having a failure on the top of the surface like that. What does it look like underneath? Mining company New Frontier Materials said the sinkhole resulted from surface subsidence at an underground mine in Elton, which is located 40 kilometers north of St. Louis along the Mississippi River. The collapse was reported to the Federal Mine Safety and Health Administration as required, New Frontier Materials spokesperson Matt Barkett said. He told the Associated Press the limestone mine is located about 52 meters below ground. Or about 170 feet. They don't know how the sinkhole will be fixed, but that engineers and geologists will most likely be involved in determining the stability of the ground and surrounding areas. Pulled up a video of it.
Watch this as this light pole, there you see it go down into the ground and that huge plume of dust that follows it. This is a soccer field. And on that incredible video caught on camera, watch this as this light pole, there you see it go down into the ground and that huge plume of dust that follows it. This is a soccer field. And all of this happened. The ground just suddenly collapsed into what is a giant sinkhole at Alton's Gordon Moore Park. Now, thankfully, there could have been all kinds of kids out here, but there were no games, no people around. And Fox News' Patrick Clark has this video, the damage, and who's likely at fault.
The list of headaches this is already causing is on a whole other level.
At the surface, it was kind of all at once. It all went, and actually one of our lights was in the middle, and it's gone now.
Wednesday morning, a camera over the concession stand captured this sinkhole opening up on fields 3 and 4 at Gordon Moore Park in Alton, Illinois.
This morning, I'd say between 6:30 and 8:30, the mine started having some issues beneath ground, and we're still learning about that. But yeah, we know they had a collapse, and the sinkhole occurred somewhere around 8:30 this morning.
New Frontier Materials, a quarry that was mining underneath the park, had sent engineers Wednesday to assess the situation. Alton Parks and Rec Director Michael Haynes says he's told crews were mining 150 feet below the soccer fields. He estimates the drop to be about 50 feet or deeper. This new $1.2 million artificial turf was just installed in 2018, with barricades and police on site making sure to keep onlookers away. One thing is clear, fields and parking lots are going to be closed for some time.
The rest of the park is open, just not the parking lots around the soccer fields. The rest of the ball diamonds and the golf course and everything will remain open.
Residents are advised to stay clear of the soccer fields. In Alton, Illinois, Patrick Clark, Fox 2 News.
That's pretty crazy. That's a sinkhole. Wow. Terrible loss for the community. This light post in the middle went through it. They were mining just below this sinkhole. So I wonder if they had any losses in the mines themselves. Pretty secretive. I hope not. But a catastrophic failure in a mine that has people working in there currently, and you have a 50-foot drop, a chasm that opens up above it. At the same time, they were reporting a failure. This is a large failure, communication, because there is nothing that could have been prevented. Nothing could have prevented this, as the failure in the mine is what's most likely caused this. Like the most extreme flooding is caused by dams that release their floodwater. A dam that opens up, and I'm sorry, not a dam, but a sinkhole that opens up like this is, pretty massive. We have to rethink about how much we're doing in mining. This could have been under the school. This could have been somewhere else related to where this mining is. And if the mining disaster is more widespread than just underneath this area, what's going to happen next? How much more is this going to fail? They're just going to have to eat this entire field as a loss. They said 1.2 million. Very massive. This is from PBS News. Arizona street medicine teams offer IV hydration to homeless people during extreme heat. Phoenix. Alfred Hanley leaned back. Alfred Hanley leaned back in his wheelchair alongside a major Phoenix freeway as a street medicine team helped him get rehydrated with an intravenous saline solution dripping from a bag hanging on a pole. Cars whished by the blazing 96-degree morning sun as the 59-year-old homeless man with a nearly toothless smile got the help he needed through a new program run by the nonprofit Circle the City. It's a lot better than going to the hospital, Hanley said, of the team that provides healthcare to homeless people. He's been treated poorly at traditional clinics and hospitals, he said. This is a very tough article. Circle the City introduced its IV rehydration program as a way to protect homeless people from life-threatening heat illness as temperatures regularly hit the triple digits in America's hottest metro. Homeless people accounted for nearly half of the record 645 heat-related deaths last year in Maricopa County, which encompasses Metro Phoenix. Dr. Liz Frey, vice chair of the Street Medicine Institute that provides training to hundreds of health care teams worldwide, said she didn't know of groups other than the circle of the city administering IVs on the street. But if that's what needs to happen to keep somebody from dying, I'm all for it, Rees said. As summers grow warmer, health providers from San Diego to New York are being challenged to better protect homeless patients. Even the Boston Health for the Homeless programs, featured in last year's book, Rough Sleepers, now see patients with mild heat exhaustion in the summer after decades of treating people with frostbite and hypothermia during the winter, said Dr. David Munson, the street team's medical director. It's certainly something to worry about, said Munson, noting that temperatures in Boston hit 100 degrees with 70% humidity during June's heat wave. Homeless people, he said, are vulnerable to very hot and very cold weather, not only because they live outside, but they often can't regulate body temperature due to medication for mental illness or high blood pressure, or because of street substance abuse. The Phoenix team searches for patients in homeless encampments in dry riverbeds, sweltering alleys, and along the canals that bring water to the Phoenix area. About 15% are hydrated enough for a saline drip. We go out every day and find them, said nurse practitioner Perla Puebla. We do their wound care, medication refills for diabetes, antibiotics, high blood pressure. Puebla's street team ran across Hanley and 36-year-old Phoenix native Philip Enriquez near an overpass in an area frequented by homeless people because it's near a facility offering free meals. Across the road was an encampment of tents and lean-tos along a chain-link fence. Enriquez sat on a patch of dirt as Puebla started a drip for him. She also gave him a prescription for antibiotics and a referral to a dentist for his dental infection. Living outside in Arizona's broiling sun is hard, especially for people who may be mentally ill or use sedating drugs like fentanyl that makes them less aware of surroundings. Stimulants like methamphetamine contribute to dehydration, which can be fatal. Temperatures this year have reached 115 degrees Fahrenheit or 45 degrees Celsius in Metro Phoenix, where 6 heat-related deaths have been confirmed through June 22nd. Another 111 are under investigation. The number of patients with heat illnesses is increasing every year, said Dr. Anish Narang, Assistant Medical Director of Emergency Medicine at Banner Medical Center Phoenix, which treats many homeless people with heat stroke. Narang's staff works frequently with Circle of the City, whose core mission is providing respite care, with 100 beds for homeless people not well enough to return to the streets after a hospital stay. Extreme heat worldwide requires a dramatic response, said physician assistant Lindsay Fox, who cares for homeless people in Albuquerque, New Mexico, through an initiative run by the University of New Mexico's School of Medicine. 3 times weekly, Fox treats infections, cleans wounds, and manages chronic conditions and consultations with hospital colleagues. She said the prospect of more heat illness worries her. Highs in Albuquerque can hit the 90s and don't fall enough for people living outside to cool off overnight. That's the other thing too, is we're not just seeing higher temperatures across the board across the country in huge, unprecedented, sweeping fashion. We're also seeing the temperatures at night don't go down that much either. In Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, you have a 95-degree day and 80-degree night. There's no way to cool down. Still very hot. And if it's humid too, it's very uncomfortable. Circle of the City, founded by 2012 by Sister Adele O'Sullivan, a physician and member of the Sisters of St. Joseph Carondelet, now has 260 employees, including 15 doctors, 13 physician assistants, and 11 nurse practitioners. It annually sees 9,000 patients. Grants, donations, and other gifts account for about 20% of the funding. Most of the rest comes from insurance payments for services provided through Medicaid and Medicare. Circle the City works with medical staff in 7 Phoenix hospitals to help homeless patients get aftercare when they no longer need hospitalization. It also staffs 2 outpatient clinics for follow-up. This partnership allows us to offer the best outcomes for our patients, said Craig Orsini, social work manager at St. Joseph Hospital and Medical Center in Phoenix. Often that's a few weeks in respite care, or for less acute needs, a stay in one of the handful of medical beds at the downtown shelter for things like dressing changes for wounds. Someone who needs months to heal might go to a skilled nursing facility. While patients recover, Circle of the City works to find longer-term transitional shelters such as those for people 55 or older or in a permanent housing. About 77% of respite patients are sent somewhere other than the street or an emergency shelter. We try to find the best fit for people, said Wendy Adams, Circle of the City's community outreach supervisor. Circle of the City medical staff contributes tens of thousands of water bottles each summer and tries to educate people about hot weather dangers, said Matt Essery, who works at one of 5 mobile clinics that stop outside soup kitchens and other services for homeless people. Essery said, Circle the City is also considering a blood analysis tool to detect electrolyte imbalances caused by dehydration. You can see right away how dehydrated they have become because it's so hard to draw their blood, he said. Other possible symptoms include headache, extreme thirst, dizziness, and dry mouth. We also see a lot of people with surface burns. Esri said of the wounds common in broiling Phoenix, where a medical emergency or intoxication can cause someone to fall on a sizzling sidewalk. Rachel Belgrade waited outside the Circle City's retrofitted truck with her black and white puppy Bo for Esri to write a prescription for the blood pressure medicine she lost when a man stole her bicycle. She accepted 2 bottles of water to cool off as the morning heat rose. They make it all this easier, said Belgrade, a Native American from the Gila River tribe. They don't give you a hard time. I used to do volunteer work for homeless organization. Want to into names or places, but it's hard listening to what people go through, knowing what they go through, what they have to go through, just to be able to get their mail. This is a very noble thing to do, very life-saving act. When canvassing around the city and finding people that are literally dying from heat stroke, triple digit temperatures with no clouds and just beating sun. There's no mercy. There's no want to go over is at night. Some 15 degrees cooler. It's not much. Still hot. It's still very hot. There's no relief. There is no relief. There's only outside. That's all there is. It's outside. for all the buildings that are looking to get leased, all the buildings that are able to keep people safe, leave them empty. Why? During times of great heat, people need to get off the street. There's tens of thousands. Especially sleeping on the ground, falling on the ground, can cause severe burns. As temperatures of blacktop can be 40 to 50 degrees hotter than the temperature outside, especially with the sun beating directly on the blacktop. It's hard knowing that people are struggling and suffering so much. We have record amounts of homelessness and record amounts of unsold houses and buildings that are unoccupied. Put people in them. Who cares? Doesn't matter. We're trying to save lives to the point that we have actual doctors and nurses combing through the city trying to find patients that are on the verge of heat stroke or worse. Nothing will be done though. It just takes people a lot of hard work to save so many lives. These people try. People try. There's a lot of reasons why we find people are homeless. It's never the same. It never gets easier, especially when you see the same people frequently through the volunteer program. The people that would talk to them, record their information, go through everything with them, the front line of defense, trying to get people back on their feet. Hard. I think I've seen it once, heard about it once. Being made to live outside, blazing heat. From BBC, hurricane makes landfall as Caribbean braces for days ahead. Hurricane Beryl has made landfall on Curaçao Island and Grenada, according to the U.S. National Hurricane Center. The hurricane, which has regained strength in the past hours, has sparked warnings of life-threatening winds and dangerous storm surges. A hurricane warning is also in effect in Barbados, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines and Tobago. Earlier, airports and businesses shut down, and residents across the Caribbean were urged to seek shelter as a potentially devastating storm hit the region. Dozens of flights were canceled across the region as Beryl approached on Sunday night, while leaders urged the public to heed warnings. It is not a joke, said the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, reminding people of the devastation caused by past hurricanes in the Caribbean. In a national address from the official residence, Mr. Gonsalves said he was seeking shelter in his basement. The roof, certainly the old part of the roof, may not survive winds at 150 miles per hour. I am making preparations to go downstairs, he said. Barrel's strength has been fluctuating. The hurricane was upgraded to a Category 4 on Monday after slightly weakening earlier. The NHC said fluctuations in strength were likely to continue, but warned that portions of the Windward Islands should prepare for potentially catastrophic wind damage. It said St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as well as Grenada, were at the highest risk of damage. Hurricane shelters opened at 1800 local time on Sunday. The cone of uncertainty. Till Friday, this hurricanes. Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, also urged citizens to be alert. We need to be ready. You and I know when these things happen. Do not let your guard down. Meteorologists say that it is unusual for a hurricane of this strength to form this early in the year. Only 5 major Category 3 plus hurricanes have been recorded in the Atlantic before the first week of July, hurricane expert Michael Lowry posted on X, formerly known as Twitter. Beryl would be the 6th and earliest this far east in the tropical Atlantic, Mr. Lowry wrote. The U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, has warned that the North Atlantic can get as many as 7 major hurricanes this year, up from the average 3 in a season. It said record high sea surface temperatures were partly to blame. Meteorologists have also remarked on how quickly Beryl developed. Storm strengthened from a tropical depression into a major hurricane, Category 3 or above, in only 42 hours, hurricane expert Sam Lilo told Associated Press news agency. Much of the region has heeded the warnings. Shops have closed and people have stocked up on fuel and groceries. Grenada issued a state of emergency, and St. Lucia imposed a national shutdown, ordering schools and businesses to remain closed. It's going to be a Category 4 hurricane. It'll get south of Haiti. It'll be a Category 3 hurricane. Picking up a lot of steam. It's a really massive storm already. Already going over these islands, the eye. So it's going to be just pulling water over the land. Huge amounts. from the Detroit Free Press. That's interesting. Melvindale man who plastered signs across Detroit ordered to clean up mess. In July 2023, William Shaw, owner of Shaw's Plumbing in Melvindale, was charged with 59 misdemeanors for tacking more than 615 illegal commercial signs to light poles across Detroit. On Friday, he joined the effort to take down other cluttered signs across the city. Shaw's labor contributes to the City of Detroit Blight to Beauties program's nuisance sign removal process, which began back in 2022 to take down the thousands of illegally placed signs around the city. While the number of signs decreased by summer 2023, the city was forced to take legal action when some repeat offenders refused to quit, Shaw's Plumbing being the worst of the worst. According to the city, Shaw's Plumbing was found to be the worst offender among the top 20 identified, requiring the city to dip in the funds and manpower to take down signs in every corner of the city between February 2022 and July 2023. To make matters worse, Shaw's Plumbing signs were harder to remove than most. Shaw's signs were placed using a nail gun with threaded nails that have wide plastic collars as opposed to a typical nail gun, often requires city workers to use box cutters to cut around the heavy-duty nail heads. They were also placed at tall heights, suggesting that the person installing the signs was on a ladder on the back of a truck, which added another layer of difficulty in taking them off the light poles. Throughout the removal process, the law department sent Shaw repeated warnings for his sign usage, including text messages sent to all known phone numbers, repeated phone calls, and cease and desist letters. They also sent a fair warning letter, according to the city, requesting that the owner or representative of Shaw's Plumbing attend a meeting on July 17, 2023, with the law department to address the ongoing violations of the city's ordinance. Shaw ignored all communication attempts and continued to tack his signs to the city's property. So on July 28, 2023, Shaw was charged with 59 counts of violating the City of Detroit's sign ordinance. More recently, Shaw was sentenced to 40 hours of community service, but in an act of poetic justice, a 36th District Court judge ordered him to spend those hours the opposite way of how he earned them, removing illegally posted signs that other business owners have posted around Detroit. That is just punishment. Especially the dude was using ladders to go up higher. Freight train derails in Chicago suburb, triggering evacuations over a suspected leak. Canadian National Railway said the derailment in Madison, Illinois involved about 25 cars carrying various substances. Hopefully this is not another East Palestine. Do not detonate the rail cars. A freight train derailed in a Chicago suburb on Thursday, briefly sparking evacuations of nearby homes and businesses. The train derailed at 217th Street in Maine in Madison, NBC Chicago reported. A mandatory evacuation was underway amid a suspected leak from the derailed cars. The evacuation affected people and businesses within a quarter-mile east, 1 mile west, and 1 mile south of the site, according to the station. The evacuation in the area was lifted Thursday afternoon, except for areas very close to the derailment site. Canadian National Railway said in a statement that the derailment involved about 25 cars carrying various substances. There were no fires or reports of injuries, a spokesperson said. 2 cars containing residue liquefied petroleum gas leaked a limited amount, the spokesperson said, adding that it has since been contained. The other rail cars that derailed but did not leak any product include non-dangerous goods, caustic soda, and rail cars containing residual of LPG, the spokesperson said. There is no danger to public safety, the spokesperson said in an emailed statement. A precautionary evacuation was ordered but has since been lifted, except for properties immediately adjacent to the site. The cause of the derailment is under investigation. Madison police said additional information will be released later Thursday. Madison is a village in Cook County, Illinois, about 30 miles south of downtown Chicago. Some of these look wrecked. Yeah, right here. These wheels right here, car wheels. They just got ripped apart. This wasn't just a derailment. This was a very disastrous derailment. Nearly half of Minnesota under unprecedented flooding, and some rivers are at or above record levels. This is some of the worst flooding I've ever seen. We're seeing major multi-state flooding. Let me try the other. See all these dots here. Flood zones. Take a look at some of these worst ones. Feet. That's massive. We're seeing unprecedented flooding throughout the Midwest. All these rivers all along this area are just bursting their banks. We're seeing records amount of flooding in the Midwest. Record Midwest flooding. It's huge. .65 feet. Record of 28.1 feet. It's not just that we're seeing individual records being broken. We're seeing them being broken at an alarming scale that hasn't been recorded before. It's a big deal. At least 2 are dead from catastrophic Midwest flooding, and a Minnesota dam is at risk of failing. Nearly half of Minnesota under unprecedented flooding, and some rivers are at or above record levels. It's massive. It's a giant multi-state flooding outbreak. Huge flooding, unprecedented flooding. That says a lot from what we've seen before in the Midwest. I'd like to take this time to go over my Patreon. Since my channel was demonetized by YouTube, by Google, due to shocking content and circumventing systems, and it's indefinite, there's no appeal, because I've made a mistake. When I originally created this account some 10 years ago, my YouTube account here, I erroneously used the account type organization. I might have had different plans for it back in those days, but since I can't change this, the account type, YouTube could change it. I've contacted their support. They will not change it, because that would allow a fair appeal. But as of right now, there is no appeal. This is an indefinite suspension. And, you know, it kind of caught me off guard. Very surprising, especially the shocking content part of it. But my ads account was suspended indefinitely. It does not look like I will be getting that back anytime soon or ever again. If I created another YouTube account, they would probably just find out and pull the same stuff, and that would be circumventing systems, right? Creating another account, yeah. But it's either this or Twitch, and I wanted to see how far I can take this with 6,500 subscribers. But it's getting harder. So if you could please go to the link in the description for the Patreon, One Great Earth. There is a free membership that you can click to help me out immensely. Just to be able to build my community more. Because as of now, I would like to talk, shout out to my headliners: Michonne, John, Ashley, and Sarah. Thank you so much for being Patreon members this month. It means the world to me. As of right now, though, I create climate-related videos on YouTube. I have no experience with Twitch, and I don't recall why I pursued YouTube over Twitch. In hindsight, I should have just chose Twitch. For some reason, I wanted to choose YouTube the way the backends worked and shorts worked. I thought I'd be doing shorts more, but there's nothing more that I hate right now than like making shorts of myself. Trying to find that 60 seconds, under 60-second content. It's very frustrating. I see why people pay others to do this kind of work, especially making shorts. I thank you for joining me. That is all the time we have for today, unfortunately. I think. Like, I have so much to get into. Speaking of the Midwest, Supreme Court blocks EPA rule to limit air pollution from Midwest states. Supreme Court has been making a lot of very radical decisions lately. We've been hearing about. The Supreme Court on Thursday blocked an interstate air quality rule issued last year by the Biden administration to limit ozone that comes from power plants and industrial sites in the Midwest and sends polluted air drifting towards the East Coast. The vote was 5-4, with Justice Amy Coney Barrett joining the three liberals in dissent. The so-called Good Neighbor Rule is part of the Clean Air Act, and the Environmental Protection Agency says it ensures that sources of air pollution in upwind states must take steps to reduce it if it is affecting air quality in downwind states. In its latest update, the EPA targeted 23 states for more stringent regulation, including California in part. But before the rule could take effect, it was caught up in a legal battle between the Republican-led states and a Democratic administration. 12 states, led by Texas, won rulings from the U.S. appeals courts reversing the EPA's determination that its air pollution standards were inadequate. These decisions shielded the states from the new rule. Undeterred, the EPA pressed ahead to enforce its new Good Neighbor rule in the Midwest states, which had yet to win exemptions. The Biden administration argued that a court-ordered delay would seriously harm the downwind states that suffer from their upwind neighbors' emissions, placing the entire burden of achieving healthy air quality of those states and exposing their residents to public health risks. But Ohio, Indiana, and West Virginia went directly to the Supreme Court, seeking an order to block the EPA's rule, at least for now. They said the Clean Air Act gives states the primary responsibility for assuring air quality in this country, and they urged the justices to block the EPA's power grab. They also argued that the EPA's more stringent controls would harm their industries and destabilize their power grids by reducing the production of electricity. Writing for the majority, Justice Neil Gorsuch said, because the states bear primary responsibility for developing compliance plans, EPA has no authority to question the wisdom of the state's choices of emission limitations. What? The unusual legal posture of the case prompted an unusual procedural move by the Supreme Court. Usually, the justices agree to review cases after a federal judge and a U.S. appeals court have ruled on the matter. But in this instance, the justices agreed to hear arguments and write a decision in the case of Ohio versus EPA before any lower court had ruled on the new regulation. California was mostly a bystander in the clean air fight because the new EPA rule did not affect power plants in the state. It would, however, apply to industrial sites beginning in 2026. too little too late, and for what is going to be too little too late, get stopped. Wish I had better news. The Earth deserves better news. Dengue fever is surging worldwide. A hotter planet will make it worse. It's been one thing that we've been following here is dengue fever, and it has been enormously on the rise across the globe. Brazil has seen record deaths regarding the disease, and it's being detected elsewhere in the United States. There's something about vaccines for this running out while this is ramping up at the same time. Something to look out for, something to monitor that we will keep track of. Dengue fever is no joke. Mosquito-borne illness causes a lot of terrible side effects and death. Between heat and dengue fever, there are two killers on the rise globally. Okay, this will be the last article, I promise. But it is interesting. This is from The Atlantic. A new danger at America's national parks. Extreme heat is making it harder for rescue helicopters to take off. This is by Kylie Moore. Oh, I can listen to it. Let's see. The thermometer read 121 degrees Fahrenheit when 71-year-old Steve Curry collapsed outside a restroom in Death Valley National Park last summer. Curry, who'd reportedly been hiking on a nearby trail in Golden Canyon, was just trying to make it back to his car. National Park Service and the Inyo County Sheriff Office quickly responded to the scene. They tried to revive him with an external defibrillator, but it was not enough, and the medical helicopter that could have transported him to the hospital wasn't able to take off because of the extreme heat. It was too late. One of the last photographs of Curry alive taken by the Los Angeles Times team on the day he died shows him sitting under a tiny patch of shade, a large sun hat on his head, and a face smeared with sunscreen. When asked by the Times why he was hiking that day, the experienced hiker replied, "Why not?" This summer, millions of visitors will descend on national parks. They may not realize that extreme heat is not only making the outdoors riskier, but also making rescues those in danger much more difficult. Park rangers in Death Valley respond to overheated visitors multiple times a week in the summer months, and in recent years, heat has been a factor in 1 to 3 deaths there a year. High temperatures can lead to heat exhaustion and heat stroke, conditions that can necessitate a search and rescue operation or an air ambulance, which can reach you more quickly than an ambulance on the ground. With temperatures above 120 degrees Fahrenheit, a common summer occurrence in Death Valley, make the air too thin to give an ambulance helicopter the lift it needs to get off the ground and safely stay there. Is this why we're using rockets to propel our helicopters up faster and higher in the Vietnam War? Because they were having trouble taking off? Huh. Without a helicopter, rescuers on the ground, braving the same blistering heat, are the only option. Although park rangers want to help, park managers will not allow them to put their lives in danger for lengthy search and rescue operations in extreme heat. On-foot searches for people whose location is unknown are less likely to happen when temperatures are 120 degrees or hotter in Death Valley. So park rangers will respond to medical emergencies that they can safely get to in developed areas and along roads, for example, even in high temperatures. These rescue challenges are likely to become more and more common at numerous national parks. Some of the most popular: Death Valley and the Joshua Tree in California, Big Bend in Texas, Grand Canyon, Arizona, are in desert regions where summer is just naturally, well, hot. Death Valley once reached an air temperature of 134 degrees at the aptly named Furnace Creek in 1913. But even the hot places are getting hotter. In 2021, Death Valley broke its record for the most consecutive days over 125 degrees. Projections from a report prepared for the National Climate Assessment shows the temperatures across the southwestern United States will continue to warm above previous averages throughout the rest of the century. National parks are disproportionately affected by climate change. From 1895 to 2010, their temperatures increased at double the rate of the rest of the country, according to research published in 2018. Last June and July, at least 5 people, including Curry, died in national parks in the Southwest. Heat was a contributing factor in all 5 deaths, but the heat doesn't seem to be deterring visitors. In fact, record-breaking temperatures can even be a draw. In Death Valley, many visitors are eager to get a photo in front of the park's giant digital thermometer with its eye-popping numbers in the triple digits. Visiting a national park is a quintessential American pastime, particularly in the summer, but in recent years, the experience of visiting a park and other outdoor destinations has changed alongside the climate. A study led by the MPS predicted a significant uptick in heat-related illnesses for its visitors in the coming years. People should know that heat can kill, and it does. Abby Wines, a Death Valley National Park spokesperson, told me. Rangers and volunteers in the Grand Canyon, where hikers start the day going down and must exert themselves more on the way back up when temperatures are higher, have since 1997 implemented a proactive approach. A preventative search and rescue team stops people before they've reached the canyon's bottom and checks on their water supplies, educates them on the day's forecast, and encourages a U-turn if necessary. Hikers can also take their own precautions to get ahead of the emergency. Recommendations are common sense and easy to follow wherever you are. Drink water, shorten your activities, wear a hat, eat salty snacks, and seek out shady trails if possible. Don't discount temperatures of 105, 110 degrees. Wines warned, even though those numbers are not so hot by Death Valley standards. Low humidity in these dry places mean your sweat evaporates off your body as it's being created, getting rid of a familiar sign of exertion. And keep an eye on your watch. Hiking low elevation trails after 10 a.m. and especially from 3 to 5 p.m. is discouraged in places like Death Valley. Stop signs at the Golden Canyon Trailhead, where Curry hiked the days of his death, warn visitors of extreme heat dangers in 9 different languages. Another sign shows A helicopter with a black line slashed through it, warning that a rescue may be hours away. When you see those signs, take heed. It's because when the temperature is above 120 degrees Fahrenheit, it makes the air too thin to give a helicopter the lift it needs to get off the ground safely. Wow. Another reason why everybody should be taking care of themselves during this extreme heat if they are able. This is massive. We're seeing record temperatures being broken all across the states. Multi-state outbreaks of heat, excessive heat warnings. It's no longer just Death Valley that's experiencing extreme heat temperatures in this country. We're seeing huge swaths. Oklahoma to Texas, Arizona to California. Seeing temperatures rise all across the South. Temperatures in North Texas over 105 degrees. This is heating up. Northern California going over 105 degrees with red flag warnings all in effect. Let's take a look at those red flag warnings. Oh, that's massive. Only an elevated. Still, that's huge. Two beluga whales evacuated from Ukraine arrive in Spain. Two beluga whales have been rescued from the besieged city of Kharkiv in Ukraine and taken to an aquarium in Valencia, Spain, in a complex operation. A multinational team involving marine mammal care experts from Oceanographic de Valencia, the largest ocean aquarium in Europe, Georgia Aquarium Atlanta, and SeaWorld were involved in the high-risk journey. The pair of belugas, a 15-year-old male named Plomber and a 14-year-old female called Miranda, arrived in delicate health Tuesday evening after a grueling journey, according to Georgia Aquarium. I've been to the Georgia Aquarium. I've seen their whale sharks they've had there. Just absolutely stunning. Kharkiv, Ukraine's second biggest city, which sits near the border with Russia, has seen a spate of Russian
spate.
Yeah, spate. Last month, a Russian strike on a megastore in the city killed 18 people, including a 12-year-old girl, regional officials said. The city is facing increasingly threat from artillery fire, which has intensified in recent weeks, with bombs dropping within a few hundred meters of the aquarium, Georgia Aquarium said in a press release. The journey began Monday when the team first removed the whales from Ukraine's Nemo Dolphinarium and drove them 12 hours from Kharkiv to Odessa. From there, they traveled the border with Moldova, where EU officials arranged to speed up border control. A 6-seater chartered plane awaited the rescue team in the Moldovan capital, Chisinau, to fly to Valencia, where they arrived Tuesday. The beluga's health and safety were our top priority, and those were challenging conditions, including rough roads, rising temperatures, and the inherent risk of being in an active war zone. Said Keith Yip, an animal care specialist at SeaWorld.
You are looking at one of the most complicated and high-risk marine mammal rescue operations ever.
The most complicated marine animal rescue operation of all time.
Miranda and Plomper, two beluga whales, were stuck in an aquarium in Ukraine where bombs were dropping just a few away. Worried about their safety, they had to be moved to Valencia, Spain. Their tough journey involved a 12-hour drive through an active war zone, European border control, a chartered plane, and a trauma team, far from their natural migration experience. The two celebrated their arrival with a spurt of excitement. Their Ukrainian caregivers are set to stay for a few weeks to help them settle into their new home.
Wow.
I think it's an image of what a
Absolutely fascinating. That is a huge road, especially for the ages of these belugas. The beluga whales can live up to be 30 years old or so, at least those in captivity. Hmm. All right. Thank you for your time. Do appreciate it. Thank you for joining me here. I go over these stories, try to bring you cutting edge climate related news. And I assure you, there is still so much to get into. But it's hard. It's deciding which stories aren't going to be dated by the time I report on them, because some of these stories that I do are just from the last few days, but they're still noteworthy, especially in flooding. Thank you again for watching, even if it is on replay. Do appreciate it. Please take care.